So the craft beer scene in America is getting real big, but even in Japan, it's also becoming a huge thing here. And before my trip, I actually did some research and found basically kind of the craft beer places to check out in Tokyo. So these are only a few of them, but there's certainly ones that are real popular. First one is actually not too far from Kanda Station, only about a 1 to 2 minute walk if you come out the north exit. So let's go check it out. Stop number 1 on this Tokyo craft beer tour is Tap X Tap, a small establishment with 20 beers on tap, most of which are Japanese beer, although they do have some imported international beers. For my first beer of the day, I ended up going with the Saison Sayuri from Bard Brewing. This bubbly beer had a nice citrus kick to it, but also a real weediness to it, which I guess goes along with the farmhouse name that is also associated with Saison. Now it was lunchtime, so naturally I went with their karaage special, which was of course fried chicken, rice, miso soup, and a little bit of cabbage. And boy, was this some crispy, delicious fried chicken. Not only that, but this was dark meat fried chicken, which was super juicy and packed full of flavor. As much as this full, delicious course of fried chicken and the rest of the fixings was great, at the end of the day, this is about the beer. And this mix of weedy and citrusy beer turned out to be a pretty great start to a really great day. Stop number 2 on this craft beer adventure only required a short 8-minute walk down the road. Craft Beer Market is actually a chain and has several locations throughout Tokyo, but they all have more or less the same thing, a great selection of Japanese beer. You might even find some wise words of wisdom on the wall, from an American founding father, no less. But it was time for the second beer of the day, and the second beer of the day meant it had to be my favorite kind, which would be a black stout. Obviously very different from the typical lagers that are associated with Japanese beer, this stout has a nice chocolatey smell to it, a great malt taste, and a little bit of a coffee burn at the end. It's a beer that you're meant to just sit down, enjoy, and sip slowly. Stop number 3 on my trip was just supposed to be a short trip from Shimbashi Station. However, that ended up proving difficult, and my GPS didn't seem to be working. I mean, it was working, but I'd be walking along the path as my GPS would show me, and then all of a sudden the dot identifying who I was would suddenly be all over the place, and I would have no idea why I was doing it. Eventually, I would figure out that it wasn't the place I wanted to go to was a short walk from Shimbashi Station. It was a short walk in Shimbashi Station. Located in Shimbashi Station, near the Asakusa line, is actually a small mart area which has a whole bunch of bars and restaurants. It's here where you can find Shinshu Osake Mura. This place is more of a store than it is actually a bar or a restaurant, but they do have a great selection of beer from across Japan. The owner will be more than willing to help you, but he doesn't speak any English. Good news is that he has all of the beer listed on the wall in English, broken down by actually location of where it's from. I ended up going with the Shigakoen Pale Ale, which had a hoppy taste to it, nice sweet notes, and a bitter finish. Next stop turned out to be very easy to find as it was just down the hallway from Shinshu Osake Mura.
The major draw of craft beer bar Ibrew is that their taps are constantly rotating, bringing in new beer from across Japan all the time. This beer is brewed from the same rice and yeast they used to make sake in Fukushima. Because of that, this easy-to-drink lager actually has a little bit of sweetness to it, just like sake. What? It had been a while since I'd eaten something. After my snack, it was time to get back on the dark beer train. Unlike my previous dark beer of the day, no need to sip here. This one was real smooth with a nice milk and malt aftertaste. For the final stop on this Tokyo craft beer tour, we just need to walk 3 minutes from Gotanda Station. More than just a name, the craft beer bistro definitely has a European influence, both in its layout as well as its menu. I was even given a complimentary tapas, which turned out to be melon served with a gazpacho. But craft beer is also in its name, and with 31 beers on tap, it certainly lives up to it. But when you have all those options, sometimes it's hard to pick, so I decided to start with something to eat. I went with the lamb skewer, which, oh boy, was that a good decision. The lamb meat was cooked to perfection, so tender, was complemented perfectly by the red and yellow peppers, and boy, did I inhale it so quickly. So quickly, in fact, that myself and the bartender ended up having a laugh together. Unable to decide about my beer, I noticed that they had a tasting set, 3 beers, so I figured that was the best option. I intentionally picked 3 very different beers, a wheat beer, a pale ale, and a sweet stout. The Yokohama wheat beer lived up to its name. Focusing on the grains, it gave it a real yeast-filled taste. The Kyoto Pale Ale was a little bit more on the malty side and had a great, smooth finish to it. It turned out to be my favorite out of all 3 of the beers. When I ordered the sweet stout, the bartender actually warned me about how sweet it was. And sure enough, she was very right. There was a very pronounced maple taste to it, and it was so sweet it actually stayed on your tongue after you drank it. To go along with the last of my beer, I ended up ordering the tarte flambe. Like I said, European influence on the menu. Not to be confused with a pizza, this is a nice thin piece of dough which is cooked until it's nice and crispy and then covered with cheese, onions, and a little bit of bacon. And with that, I finished the last of my meal and my beer and decided to call it a day.
Okay guys, that's it for this video. I'm back in my hostel here for the end of the night. All those places were really great. There's a great beer selection and even some really good food. If I had to pick, and I don't know if it's just because it's the last one I've been to, but Craftsman, also known as the Crafts Beer Bistro, that was just fantastic. The beer selection was great, large beer selection, 31 beers on tap, and then of course the food was fantastic, very unique, very different from the other places. But the other places certainly had some great vibes to them, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Leave a comment down below, make sure to subscribe, give a thumbs up if you like this video, and we'll see you next time.